Have you ever wondered how many times you were respected for being good? Have you ever felt that the more you try to please, the less you are valued? And if your obsession with being a good person is precisely what is destroying you? Everyone sees what you seem to be, few feel what you are. Niccolò Machiavelli. The truth is simple, but cruel. You are tired. Maybe you don't even know exactly why, but you feel like you carry an invisible burden, a constant obligation to keep everything in balance, please everyone, avoid conflicts, be understanding. From an early age, you were taught that being good was the path, that the good win in the end, that it is enough to be fair, honest, humble. And the world in its intrinsic justice will recognize this. But what if all this is a comfortable lie, a script they taught you to keep you obedient, predictable, manipulable? How many times have you silenced your voice to preserve the peace? How many times have you swallowed your tears, your anger, your pride, just to not disappoint anyone? How many times have you let someone humiliate you and still smiled, saying, "It's okay. This kindness that you've been told is a virtue. Maybe it's just a collar in disguise." The world doesn't reward the good. The world rewards the strategic. And if you're here listening to this, it's because you've felt it firsthand. You've been frustrated being the nice guy, the understanding person, the friend who understands everything, and realized with a silent pain that the more you give, the less you receive. The more you bend, the more they demand. The more you try to be accepted, the less you are respected. This is where Machiavelli comes in, not as the demon that history painted, but as one of the first men to have the courage to tell the naked truth. Pure morality disconnected from reality is a trap. Being seen as good is not the same as being effective, and living trying to please everyone is becoming a hostage to your own kindness. This is an invitation to rupture. Let's cross the veil of moralistic lies together. Let's expose the discomfort, the dark and necessary truth behind the obsession with being good. You don't need to become cruel, but you do need to wake up. Because as long as you try to please everyone, you will be a slave to the image they built for you. And if you're already tired of being used, ignored, discarded, maybe it's time to learn from Machiavelli what they never taught you. How to stop being nice and start being respected. You're ready, so come, because the transformation begins now. You grew up hearing that the right thing to do was to be a good person, that kindness begets kindness, that just being honest, fair, patient, and the universe will conspire in your favor. But what if I told you that this idea is a carefully disguised trap? That kindness without strategy is just bait. In a world that operates by self-interest, dominance, utility. The truth is, being good in the common sense has become synonymous with erasure. Being good has become not imposing yourself, not saying no, not causing discomfort. Being good has become silencing your own pain so as not to bother. And the more perverse it gets, the more you try to be good, the more you distance yourself from who you really are. Being good the way you were taught means forgetting yourself, to fit into the expectations of others. It's being an actor on a social stage, reciting lines that not even you believe anymore, and the audience applauds, but not out of admiration. They applaud because it's convenient. Because as long as you continue to be predictable, accessible, docile, you are harmless. And that which does not threaten is not respected. Machiavelli, in his brutal clarity, said, "The ruler who wishes to be only good will end up destroyed by those who are not." Goodness in itself is not virtue. It is naivety. And naivety in this world is an invitation to abuse. A man who wishes to always act virtuously is doomed to ruin among so many who are not virtuous. Niccolò Machiavelli, the Prince. Reread that sentence. Let it hurt, if necessary, because this cut could be the beginning of your freedom. The truth is, you were educated to please, not to live. From an early age, you were taught that your acceptance depended on your obedience. Don't shout, that's ugly. Swallow the crying, be good. And so little by little you learned, feeling was wrong, reacting was rude, imposing limits was aggressive. You learned to mutilate yourself emotionally, to be accepted. But the question I ask you now is, accepted by whom? Respected by whom? Valued by whom? Because in the end, Even when you do everything right, you still feel invisible. You still need to beg for recognition. You still live with the feeling that you are always in debt, always lacking, always almost enough. This is where the collapse begins. Kindness has become a prison. You are trapped in a cell, decorated with beautiful phrases. You are so kind, so understanding, always so balanced. But behind every compliment, there is an unspoken demand. Keep annulling yourself so that I feel comfortable. And you continue, even when it hurts, even when you revolt, even when your silence screams inside. The tragedy is that you confuse this suffering with nobility. You think you're doing the right thing, that you are being honest. But the world does not see your intention. The world reacts to your stance. You can have the purest heart and still be trampled, because purity without presence is just another victim on the ground. Kindness without strength becomes a bargaining chip for the cunning, an excuse for exploiters, a main course for emotional predators who feed on your guilt, hesitation, and desperate desire to be accepted. And the more you try to show that you are trustworthy, the more you become a tool, not a person. Have you noticed that those who command respect don't need to explain anything? That those who have limits, even if less liked, are heard? While you, with all your kindness, continue to be interrupted, overwhelmed, forgotten. This happens because the world doesn't respect the pleasant. It respects those who impose consequences. Machiavelli wasn't a defender of cruelty, he was a surgeon of reality. He looked at the world and saw what no one wanted to see. Morality, when blind, is a strategy of domination. And those who live to appear good, sooner or later, lose everything and even themselves. The good person who refuses to face the game becomes a disposable piece. You can give everything, time, affection, loyalty, but the day you're no longer useful, you will be ignored. And the cruelest part, without guilt, without resentment. After all, you never demanded more than that. The world understands limits. It doesn't understand sacrifices. So here's the first uncomfortable truth that needs to be said. Your kindness is imprisoning you, not because it's wrong, but because it's being used against you. And as long as you continue hiding behind the image of a good person, you will be denying your strength, your voice, your dignity. You weren't born wanting to please everyone. This hunger for acceptance, this urge to avoid conflict, this fear of bothering, was learned, conditioned, imposed. From a very early age, you understood, maybe without words, maybe only with looks and subtle punishments, that being your whole self was not enough. You learned that love came with a price, and that price was your silence. As a child, saying, "I didn't like it," or "that hurt me," was enough to be labeled spoiled, ungrateful, exaggerated. Crying at the wrong time was enough to be reprimanded. Being you, spontaneous, emotional, honest, was enough to be shaped. And you shaped yourself. It started with small gestures. A forced smile here, a lying okay there. It soon became a way of life, swallowing frogs, giving in before being asked, pretending you don't care. All of this became routine, because at some point in your history, you learned that your emotional survival depended on not being rejected. The problem? This adaptation became submission, an automatic mechanism of self-abandonment. You became a master at perceiving what the other wants to hear, feeling the mood, measuring your words, anticipating disappointments, just to avoid the discomfort of being frowned upon. But you know what's crueler? You think this is empathy, but it's not. It's fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being judged, fear of being called selfish, difficult, insensitive, fear of being who you really are, with limits, desires, anger, and voice. And while you live this fear, disguised as kindness, the world reads you, exactly by what you show, weakness. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't talk about modern psychology, but he understood the human soul like no one else. He knew that people respect what imposes consequences. He knew that those who never threaten, never confront, never impose, never are taken seriously, and this applies to you. You can be kind, but if you never take a stand, you will be treated like a tool, not a presence. You can be generous, but if you never say enough, You will be drained to exhaustion. And the worst part? No one will feel guilty about it, because the world doesn't measure kindness. It measures usefulness. And if your kindness is always offered without criteria, without reciprocity, without pause, it stops being a virtue. It becomes a resource. Have you noticed how the nice guys are always running after, justifying, explaining, apologizing for existing, while those who impose limits, even if less nice, are heard, respected, remembered? This is no coincidence. It is psychic structure. It is a hierarchy of emotional power. The submissive lives in fear of being abandoned. The assertive lives with clarity, knowing who can stay and who must go. The submissive hides behind masks of empathy. The assertive shows their face, even when it is uncomfortable. The submissive hopes their kindness will speak for itself. The assertive knows, without presence, there is no respect. Here comes one of the biggest emotional confusions of our generation, the idea that being nice is the same as being good. It is not. Being nice is being pleasant. Being good is being fair. Being nice is avoiding conflict. Being good is facing the necessary. Being nice is smiling on the outside, while bleeding on the inside. Being good is saying, "This hurts me, and I don't accept it anymore." The psychology of the submissive is actually the psychology of fear. Fear of losing fragile bonds, fear of not being loved, fear of losing a space that only exists because you agreed to live bent over. But here's the harsh truth. He who lives in fear of being abandoned is already abandoning himself every day. And if you continue living like this, with fear of displeasing, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being yourself, you will end up empty. You will look in the mirror and no longer know who you are. You will live as everyone's favorite character, except your own. Because the price of submission is self-extinction. Machiavelli would say, "It's not about being loved, it's about not being ignored." And that only happens when you have the courage to assert yourself, to say no, to represent consequence. Of course, being cruel is not the solution, but being harmless isn't either. There is a middle path, but it's only accessible when you understand that being submissive is not being good. It's being conditioned. It's being trained to please. It's being kept in a perpetual state of fear and emotional dependence. And you deserve to get out of this. But for that, you need to face a brutal question. Is your kindness born of love or of fear? Because if it's from fear, it's not kindness. It's armor, it's a shield, it's a prison. And you weren't made to live imprisoned. You were made to become whole. You spent your life believing that you would be recognized for your essence, that it would be enough to be sincere, fair, humble, and people would see your truth. But Machiavelli, more than 500 years ago, wrote a sentence that pierces any naive idealism like a dagger. Everyone sees what appears to be, few feel what they really are. Niccolò Machiavelli, the prince. This sentence is a blow, and also a revelation. It shows us that the world does not respond to your inner truth. The world responds to your image, to what you represent, to the impact you cause, to the fear or respect you inspire. It's cruel, certainly, but it's real. And as long as you live waiting for your good intentions to be noticed, you'll continue to be ignored by those who know how to play. Because life, whether you like it or not, is a game of perception. And Machiavelli didn't write to create monsters. He wrote to teach survival. He knew that in a world populated by wolves, being just a lamb is asking to be devoured. But there is a way out, and it begins with a new kind of virtue, not the virtue preached by moralists that demands purity, passivity, submission, but Machiavellian virtue, a mixture of courage, strategic intelligence, emotional coldness, and firm presence. Machiavelli said that the prince, the one who wants to rule his life, not be ruled by it, must be like two animals, the fox and the lion. Be a fox, to recognize traps, to observe, to read the environment, to perceive hidden intentions, to know when to be silent and when to move. Don't trust blindly. See through masks. Be a lion, to command respect, to not explain yourself, to not apologize, to let your presence say, "Don't test me. You don't need cruelty, just inevitability." Here's the key. You need to be both. You need to see the emotional games before they swallow you. And you need to be strong enough to make others think twice before testing your limits, because no matter how much it hurts, that's what the world respects. Presence, boundary, consequence. You don't need to stop being sensitive, generous, compassionate, but these qualities, without structure, without contour, without limits, becomes traps. The same compassion that heals can destroy, if given to those who only want to use you. That's why Machiavelli invites us to stop begging for approval and start building internal authority. Not the authority that shouts, that dominates, that imposes fear, but the authority that commands respect, through firm silence, through the clarity of saying no, through the courage to be yourself, without kneeling. And here comes the turning point. You don't need to become a tyrant. You need to stop being a ghost. The world treats those with power well. And this power begins with your ability to say enough, to stop justifying yourself, to understand that not everyone deserves explanations, much less your best. You don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to stop asking for permission to exist. The image you project carries weight. If you present yourself as always accessible, always nice, and always willing, you will be treated as a resource. And a resource can be discarded at any time. But when you present yourself with presence, with a firm gaze, with a clear voice, with a non-negotiable posture, you begin to change how the world sees you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. Because the greatest power Machiavelli teaches is not domination over others, but escaping domination by the fear of displeasing. You can indeed be loved, but being feared, in the sense of being taken seriously, representing a force, is often the safest way to be respected. And respect is the foundation of any true relationship. Without it, everything is theater. So look at yourself now. Have you been a fox? Or do you constantly fall into emotional traps? Have you been a lion? Or do you roar inwardly while smiling outwardly? Is the image you project aligned with the value you carry, or do you show yourself small, waiting for the world to perceive your hidden greatness? The prince, who in this context is you, needs to wake up. You need to take off the cloak of innocence and put on the armor of clarity. You need to learn that being a strategist is not betraying your essence. It is protecting your truth. It is giving yourself the right to choose who you give your best to, because your best is not an obligation, it is a gift. And a gift should only be given to those who honor, not those who consume. The time has come to ask the question you have avoided your entire life. Do you want to be loved, or do you want to be free? It seems cruel, almost inhuman, but it is the choice Machiavelli silently forces you to make. Because the search for being loved, when based on fear, need, emotional dependence, is the most subtle prison. Worse, it's a prison you lock yourself. You don't need bars when you need approval. You don't need handcuffs when you fear displeasing. You don't need external censorship when you sabotage yourself internally to fit others' expectations. The truth no one wants to face is, the obsession with being seen as good, nice, pleasant, is not born of virtue. It is born of the shame of being who you are. That shame is sneaky. It disguises itself as humility, dresses itself in kindness, masks itself in empathy. But deep down, it is your secret belief that you are not enough, the way you are. That's why you mold yourself, recalibrate yourself, adapt to each environment, to each person. Say yes and when you want to say no. Forgive too quickly. Smile when everything inside you wants to scream. And then you wake up. Realize you've spent your life keeping up an image that isn't yours. You became what others needed you to be, and forgot who you were before that. The man who lives only to be loved will always be a slave to others' gaze. He who wishes to be free must be willing to be misunderstood. This phrase isn't Machiavelli's, but it could be, because what he teaches us is, freedom begins when you stop caring what others expect and start living what you expect of yourself. But don't be fooled. This path isn't sweet. It's arid. It's lonely. Many people will walk away. They'll say you've changed, you've become cold, you're strange, and you'll ask yourself, am I being cruel, Or am I finally being honest? Because honesty, after years of self-deception, scares. It bothers. It breaks the invisible pact you had with the world. I sacrifice myself, and you love me. But the currency they paid was counterfeit. It wasn't love, it was convenience. And when you decide to step out of the role of the good guy, the one who understands everything, the one who accepts everything, you break that pact and begin to write a new contract with yourself. I will be loyal to my truth, even if it costs me the acceptance of those who only loved me when I was silent. True freedom requires letting go of the character. It requires tolerating the discomfort of not pleasing everyone. It requires holding the gaze of those who disapprove without lowering your eyes. Because the love worth having does not require your annihilation, and the respect that strengthens you does not come from submission. It is born from coherence, courage to be whole, audacity to be self-sufficient. And here comes the most brutal part of all. No one will set you free. There won't be applause. There won't be a diploma. There won't be a finish line with fireworks saying, "Congratulations, now you are free." You will have to free yourself alone, in the silence, in the discomfort, in the contained anger that you transform into clarity, in the old pain that you turn into your foundation. And when this happens, something shifts forever. You no longer beg for affection. You no longer plead for recognition. You choose. You decide who to open the doors to and who to keep closed. This is being a prince of yourself. It means to stop being subject to others' opinions, to abandon the false throne of the beloved good guy and take the throne of your truth. Yes, you can continue being a good person, but not a good person at the cost of your soul. Not a good person who accepts everything in silence, not someone who nullifies themselves in the name of kindness that only serves others. Because if that's the case, then you are not good. You are domesticated, and no one was born for that. So I ask you now, straight up, bluntly, do you want to be loved, or do you want to be free? The answer is not in your head. It is in your choices and in what you will do from here on. You have gone through 4 layers, deconstructed the idea of kindness, recognized the roots of your submissive behavior, discovered the strategic power hidden in Machiavelli's ideas, and finally you face the hardest choice of adult life, to please the world or to finally be true to yourself. The answer may still be echoing within you, and that's okay. Real transformations don't come with fanfare. They come with silence, with pain, and sometimes with a little anger. But it's in that discomfort that the truest changes are born. The world respects those who respect themselves. The rest is theater, and you deserve to step off the stage and take charge of the script. If you've come this far, something inside you probably no longer fits the old fantasy of being good at any cost, and this fissure, this crack in your social persona, is the beginning of your liberation. I remember the first time I realized my kindness was destroying me. It was in a conversation with a friend I admired, someone who, without knowing, always told me the same thing with their eyes. "You are too kind for this world." At the time, I thought it was a compliment. Today, I see it was a warning. I accepted everything, gave everything, kept quiet and adapted. But one day, after being ignored once more, I felt an anger that burned inside me. Anger at others, perhaps, but mainly anger at myself. In that moment, I wrote a sentence on a piece of paper and stuck it on my mirror. Being good isn't about erasing yourself. Being good is about having the courage to exist fully. It took me years to understand the weight of this. And maybe you're in this same process now, and if you are, I just want to tell you, I see you. This channel, these videos, these scripts, aren't about giving lessons. They're about lighting candles in dark hallways where many walk alone. And if one of these candles illuminated something inside you, today, it was worth it. Remember, you do not have to always keep being nice. Keep letting life run you over. The algorithm loves those who live to please. Now, if you're ready to stop being the tamed version of yourself, click like, comment below the last time you said no without guilt, and subscribe, not because I asked, but because from now on, you only do what you choose to do. Like every transformation that really matters, you'll have to find out for yourself. See you on the other side.